Today's episode is brought to you by Kid Veen. Everyone has a sinister side. Discover your inner demon and satisfy your dark fantasies by joining the fast-growing gang of misfits currently wearing Kid Veen. Go to www.kidveen.com and use the code CREATIVE at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Every time one of you guys uses this code, I actually get a kickback. Affiliate links and sponsorship programs are one of the few ways to actually get a little bit of money back for content on this platform. So if you like the podcast and want to show some support, this is one of the best ways you can do it. All right, welcome to another amazing episode of Creative Appetite. Today I'm joined by my really good friend Charlie from Terra Firma.
Hey JC, how you going?
Charlie runs an Argentinian barbecue inspired by asado style. This particular barbecue is run on the Sunshine Coast and is gaining quite the momentum, and I'm really excited to get down and chat about it. Let's get
Charlie. Into it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I actually think I nailed that intro apart from the other bit. Every time, like literally every intro, it's always like there'll be like one word or something like I'll slip up.
It's always a bit hard.
Eventually I'll get there, but it's all right. Doesn't matter. So we'll start with Terra Firma first, and then I always like start and then work my way back. I feel like that seems to be the So what is Terra Firma for someone who hasn't seen it or been to one of your events?
All right, so Terra Firma is a concept, a cooking concept. Like, so for us and for me, it's about connecting the diners with their produce cooked in the most simple and basic way. That means over the open fire. We've been cooking over the open fire for millennium now, you know. So, and as a chef, because I'm a chef by trade, I had many restaurants, one in Paris, one in Australia, and for me, going back to those basic techniques and mastering them to the point where you can actually put up a whole sort of menu together, but just using wood. It's just incredible. It's an incredible feeling. It's an incredible feeling to connect with the environment you're cooking in as well, and that's the best part for me. For example, so Terra Firma, we do open fire cooking, we do private function, we run also our public events. So we do have a few property that we collaborate around the Sunshine Coast where we propose different style of event. We've got one running in Kenilworth Homestead, where we host about 300 to 400 people per weekend that are coming out for the day. We've got a big fire pit, like 6 meter long by 4 meter wide. It's just massive with flames above, and we cook for hundreds of people every weekend. We've got live music in the paddock, a little wine and beer bar as well. So the formula is pretty simple: is gather your friends, your family around the fire, around good food, good times, and that's what is Terra Firma.
That's pretty much nailed it on the head. Should have just got you to do the intro. That would be way better. I think it's like such a, like the way you just described it about cooking over the fire, especially in Australia, because like going camping and having campfire ovens and barbecues and stuff like that's massive over here. And I assume it's pretty big in other countries as well.
I think, the trend is going really worldwide at the moment. Like everyone wants to, especially after all those events, those last 2 years, COVID, lockdown, like no one could travel. So it's a way for people to connect again with the simple pleasures of life, going out, going camping, cooking your food, harvesting your own food. If you go fishing, you know, and then you light the fire down the beach and you cook your own catch, there's nothing more satisfying than, a meal that you just prep like in good company, in a beautiful environment, and just connected to nature.
Do you think that it's like this, like there's something about catching your own food and then cooking it, it taps into this ancient style, like this ancient human within yourself? Do you think that's why it's so popular?
I think it's yes in some way, but I also think that with whatever's going on in the world and how some the food is more and more processed and people are more and more in a hurry. They want to cook less, take less time to cook. It's also a way to sort of get back to basic, take your time and enjoy what you actually cook. So I think that's why people wants to know more and more where their produce come from. So by taking like a really raw product, like, I mean, it could be a piece of meat, it could be a whole fish. You've got the whole produce, and then you just have to light the fire and master master this fire and the heat. So it's very complex at the end. Like, it's not just about like just lighting the fire and put your fish over it. Otherwise, you're just going to burn it. Like, you know. So I always say it's the most basic technique in the most complex environment, because you have to take care about like everything. It's windy on one side or another. Well, the heat's going to go either one side or the other. So one part of the protein you're cooking is not going to be cooking the same way on both sides. So you also, when you cook over fire, you do not use the flame much. You use more the embers. So that means you have to have your main fire and then drag your embers if you want to grill or use the direct heat. Or you can use the flame, but what we call that cooking with the indirect heat. So you've got your main pit, and then you're going to hang probably about a meter away or above the flame until the flame and the wood breaks down into embers, and then you can lower down your protein to just keep that constant heat that you're looking for to not burn, but actually cook. So it's very interesting and very challenging. You know, anything can happen within 2 seconds. You turn around and then, I don't know, the fire can...
Taken off.
You know, it does. It is some way dangerous, like, but not that much. Like, if you are very careful, and that's what is very special to me, like, because fire has so many different power. You know, it can destroy life. It can bring back to life as well. If you're very cold, you light a fire, you get warm. It can burn your food that you're cooking, for example. But it can also smoke and cook beautifully. So it's always a challenge, and you never know what's going to happen when you light a fire. And every cook up is sort of different every time. So that's really one of the reasons that I am sort of memorizing, like, you know, in front of the fire when I'm cooking. It's just so unique every time. So
is there like the specifics of like the fire, just as you were describing, I guess, in terms of like getting the coals right, making sure the flame isn't rising too high and stuff like that. So when you start your day, are there any specifics that you're like looking for in terms of maybe like weather? You're like, all right, the wind's going to be coming in from this angle, or things like
100%, 100%. So I have to take in consideration all the weather condition every time I light a fire. So that means rain is the biggest one. Unfortunately, up until a certain level of rain, we can't cook over fire under the rain. But wind, of course, like I had like some cook-ups, like it's quite windy. It's always a challenge because when the wind get into the fire pit, like the heat just go absolutely everywhere, and nothing cooks properly. So it's going to be the produce is going to be kissed by the flame at all time and potentially burn. Or so it's always a bit of a challenge. But I always take like all the conditions like in consideration every time I light a fire.
When it's like super windy, is there, or even a little bit of rain, is there anything that you use to like cover around?
Yeah, sometimes I use like just piece of collarbones or tins like on the side of the fire pit just to
Hold the heat in.
hold the heat in. Yeah, I do that.
How long did it take you to figure it out? Like to kind of get into it? Maybe not.
Yeah.
You might not have mastered it just yet, but like when was it? When did it get to a point where you're like, all right, I'm comfortable with what I'm doing?
That's a very interesting question, actually. Like, I guess I always been doing like wood fire barbecue. Even back in France, it's very popular. You know, like so. I sort of, and as a chef, I do have like some really good notions of heat, and so that's very helpful compared to someone that has absolutely no idea whatsoever and wants to start cooking over fire, you know. So I had pretty solid base when I started, but when you do big cook-ups where sometimes like over one weekend at Kenilworth I can cook like half a ton of meat, over the weekend. That's pretty mad.
That's a lot of meat.
That's a lot of meat, and all the meat has to be cooked
The
the same way. And so I cheat a little bit. I've got like prop thermometer, so I can check like temperature, and but it's not cheating. It's just doing my job, you know.
all the hardcore fire enthusiasts like, I ain't using those thermometers, mate. Like those like the guys that really get into brisket.
But it took me it took me a few go to sort of master it, and now I can even like just by the look of it, I know exactly what to do, and it becomes like, I don't know, automatic.
Second nature,
yeah. Second nature is a sixth sense, like, you know, in some ways.
What would you say is the hardest piece of protein to cook?
Bit tricky. What would it be? I'd say probably the fish. I'd say fish.
Just because it's so lean and it's like really easy.
Well, when I cook fish over fire, I always try to choose a fish that has a high fat content. So that can be salmon, that can be trout, it can be kingfish, that can be plenty of. I've cooked all sort of fish over fire. I even cook like a reef fish, so very white flesh, very firm, but they're not really ideal to cook over fire because they tend to dry up a little bit.
Yeah, because you're trying to keep the moisture within the.
So when you cook over fire, for example, it can be meat or fish, you always have like a big pot with a brine.
Oh,
so you brine every 15-20 minutes your meat, so to keep the moisture in and just to prevent the meat or the protein you're cooking to stay moist.
And is that the same throughout with like a big whole pig?
Yeah, same thing. When you cook a whole pig, you have to brine it. So I use some little like spray bottle and I spray. But you can also have like a little brush with a bunch of rosemary, and I usually like, so the brine, it's a water-based brine, so basically it allows you to moisturize the protein and to season it as well, as long as it cooks. So it's water with quite a bit of salt in there. It's quite salty. I usually add some, infuse some garlic, rosemary, thyme, smoked paprika, whatever you feel like.
So there's no like secret brine that you're like, I'm not telling no one about.
Well, I've done an example of brine. It doesn't mean that's the brine that I'm using every time, but it's a good base. If you start using that brine,
you're good to go.
You're good to go. Yeah, you're good to go.
Doesn't necessarily mean that's the one.
That's a good start. That's a good start.
That's the best. Oh my god. Oh, I've watched like I'm very fascinated by people that cook over fire. Yeah. There's one particular restaurant in Sydney called Fire Door.
Yeah, Fire Doors.
Yeah, and that's where I first. Yeah, that was like maybe my first introduction into someone cooking everything over the fire. Like he cooks salad over fire.
Salad, dessert. It has been like a really, really big inspiration, and he really pushing the whole game to another level because he's doing fine dining over fire, you know. So
yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah, it's
and
pretty
even
intense.
the way he described it was very similar to the way you described it. It's like like in a split second, everything can just go pear-shaped and you just lose the whole lot.
Yeah, the whole lot, you know, like you turn around, you're chatting to someone and then it's burned. That's just the way it is. Well, when you're working in a kitchen, you put whatever you want to cook in the oven, you put a timer and then you can chat and go away, and whenever it's cooked, the timer to stop the oven. Well, if you go away, still going to be cooking.
There's no chill.
No chill. No. So it's intense in that way because you constantly working the fire and around and like looking after your protein. So for me, as a chef, really, I think it's the best way to honor a produce, like a really good produce, because you're really taking care of it during the 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 10 hours you're cooking. Sometimes, like when I cook whole pigs, talking 8, 9 hours of cooking. So it's a 4 a.m. start, an hour to sort of get the fire going and get this amount of coals and ambers to play with and to be able to dispatch around the pig that you're cooking. But yeah, I love it.
Is there like are there specific coals that you use, or are you just using like straight hardwood and just?
I do use mostly hardwood. Iron bark is a really good dense wood. Burns hot, burns slowly as well. So I usually use a mix of iron bark and blue gum. Blue gum is a little less dense, a bit more inflammable as well. So if I need to revive the fire, I'm probably gonna chuck a few like log of gum in the fire, and if I want a slow burning sort of smoking fire, I'm gonna use iron bark. So I'm always using both of them.
And do you cook all of this by yourself? Are you the one out there running the show and making sure that no one touches it because you're so pedantic that if someone slips up, it's all over?
Not really. I am the guy around I am the fire guy. I'm the fire guy. This is me. But I do have like a really good team with me because obviously I can't do it all by myself. But depending on the size of the event, but yeah, I can't do it all by myself. But I've got a really good team, passionate chef, and they've been following me now for 10 months, like since I've started. So yeah,
that's pretty crazy to see how far it's come within 10 months. Because it's I don't know if anyone else has been watching, but I've obviously been keeping a close eye on it due to like we have mutual friends and things like that. And it seems to me that it's in a league of its own because there's nothing on the coast that's like that here, I don't think.
Well, I think I'm the only crazy chef that just want to cook in the Queensland heat and floods and over fire. I think that's maybe the reason why no one is doing it, you know. Like,
leave it to the crazy guy. You know,
I was like, oh, that crazy French chef, I don't know what he's doing, but it's cool. Yeah, it's cool. Loving it. Yeah, it does. Well, I guess I haven't invented anything really with this type of cooking, but what I'm trying to share with people, the guests, the attendees of all these events is my way of doing things. And the way for me, the best way of doing it is outside, connected with nature, good produce, good time, good company, good wine or beers, and just take the time to cook your food. You know, if you want a good meal, it doesn't take 3 minutes. Like no matter what the TV programs tells you, 3 minutes meal
no good.
can be good, but just not as good.
It's like a testament, I guess, to food, the way you're doing it, because you're actually creating an environment based around the food, where I find that maybe at a restaurant, the food is not necessarily the main objective. It's like the social aspect of you and your friends, where this is more because it's all open and everyone can see it, and then they know exactly where it's coming from. You're more or less going there for the food, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, I mean, what I like about this activity, it's a really immersive experience for the guests who wants to connect with us, the chef, and we very, very often, nearly all the time, have like lots of people around the fire pit asking heaps of questions, because barbecue culture is very anchored here in Australia. Everyone's loves to go camping, you know, like cooking and barbecuing. And I've got a little fun story about barbecue in Australia. Might get back to it later.
Yeah, we'll jump into it.
But yeah, barbecue culture is very, very, very anchored here. But I think mentality and interest are slowly changing. For me, so the story is, when I first arrived in Australia, right, I was living in Sydney, and someone invited me to a barbecue, and then I was like stoked going to a barbecue. But the idea of the barbecue that I had wasn't really the same to the people I went to at barbecue. And then just turn on the bottle of gas, Weber, burn some snags, and here was the barbecue. And I was like, well, where is the barbecue? Like, is that it? Like, well, in France, like, especially like the culture I grow up, like, it's always been very focused on the produce and on the food. I've been super lucky. I really, really grow up that way. And so barbecue over summer, it would be cooking over fire, but anything, fish, seafood, meat, all sort of cuts of meat, vegetables. So it's a really different sort of approach. While here it's more like, oh yeah, turn on the barbie, just get a feed, and it's more about the beers than but yeah, which is really cool. Like,
100%.
Don't get me wrong. Like, I love my beer when I'm cooking and when I'm doing a barbecue. But when I'm doing a barbecue, it's about the food.
Every Australian's gonna be like, God damn, I need to step up my game.
Well, that's maybe not everyone, but it's at least like that's what I want to share. Say, okay, there's many ways of barbecuing. Like you got Japanese barbecue, you've got Korean barbecue, you've got American smoker barbecue, you've got like also very...
Yeah, there's so many. Especially in America. America's like massive on barbecue, like briskets and stuff like that.
Yeah, brisket, they do a lot of smoker, and I don't do that much of that, to be honest.
I feel like Australians get a lot of inspiration from Americans. Like right now, brisket seems to be the in thing.
Yeah,
but you could pinpoint exactly where that's come from. Like, for a fact that Americans obviously were massive on barbecue, so that like everything seems to trickle down from America into Australia, and then it's like the next big thing. But where this is a lot more complex and there's a lot more going into it.
It's very different. And then when I first started Terra Firma, the vision was, okay, it's South American barbecue, come from Argentina, the asado culture. So asado is the barbecue culture down in Argentina, created by the gaucho. The gaucho, or the Argentinian cowboy, ranch boy, right? So a lot of cattle in Argentina, very famous and very known internationally for their meat. Well, Australia is exactly the same. Very cattle farming focused, vast, beautiful countrysides, very big country as well. So I found really a lot of similarity in between what the doing in Argentina and what we could do here in Australia, and try to sort of do a bit of a nosy version of the asado, you know.
Yeah.
And so very focused on the produce, music, and good time.
I definitely think it is, because I've been to the Kenilworth event, and there was like music, good beer when I was not taking a little break from alcohol, and then there was like really good food as well, and I was like, it was all nicely tied in, and obviously it was in a family event, so you could tell that there was a lot of people there with their families having a really good time, which is it's really like nice to see like a community event for people to come with their children and stuff like that. But as well, like the food matches the environment, or like the community base, I guess, because it takes a community to make the barbecue itself. Like with you and your team, like you probably need to focus on the fire, so there's no way you're going to be able to do everything else as well.
No, I can't do anything without the team, that's for sure. So it's a teamwork, and I think, I've got I always have a vision, and then I'm always sort of slaving to get to the point where I want to be in that vision. And this vision with Terra Firma was really to be able to share what I do and the way I do, and open people's eyes, saying, look, this is one way of doing it. It's very pleasant. You don't have to rush. You know, you can spend half a day cooking and enjoying food. You don't have to eat in 10, 15 or an hour. If you have like friends over, let's just take the whole day, you know, and just like chill out and just enjoy that moment together, and happy days.
Have you ever been to a traditional Māori dinner where it's like a hangi?
No, that's very funny that you're asking the question, because I have been thinking lately about maybe try to do a collab event maybe over in New Zealand and learn how to do the hanging. So it's in the pipe, but I don't know when. But I'm super keen to learn to cook on the ground, because obviously I cook above the ground. But it'd be really cool to learn how to do it.
Yeah, well, coming from like, I was born in New Zealand, and I was like traditional Māori heritage. Like we had hangis as kids growing up, and it's such a similar like very not like caveman style of cooking, like where you got to put it in the ground. But at the same thing, it takes a lot of preparation. You got to dig the hole, heat the rocks.
It's a whole process,
like there's still heaps that goes into it. I find that but I feel like maybe if you actually looked into it, you could probably produce something really amazing from it, because I don't necessarily like some of the way that it's a lot steam cooked. Yeah. But then I find that if like chicken, for example, if it's steam cooked, just tastes very bland. Yeah. Whereas if you actually maybe spice it up a bit, you could probably really create something crazy.
Maybe it's my next project.
That's it. All the Kiwis out there, let's go. Hit him up. Perry, where are you? I don't even know if Perry would know how to cook hangi. He should. No. I know his family definitely would know how to do it.
I know, but I don't think he knows.
I don't think
I would know. I would know if he knows.
Yeah, he doesn't know. Let's go back a little bit. We'll roll back a little bit.
All right.
So you've mentioned a few times that you're from Paris.
Yep.
And that you were a chef growing up. When you were growing up, maybe as a little kid, was food a massive part of your family's culture?
Yes, I grew up, born and raised in Paris, and we have like family come from the west coast of France, by the ocean, just under Brittany, and so I really grew up going out the countryside every weekend, every holidays, and my grandfather used to have like a beautiful like organic veggie garden that I used to hang in there like my whole childhood, like picking up vegetables and running behind chicken. He had like some pigeon and all sort of poultry stuff. Yeah. So my mum was a really good cook. So I grew up always with like cake on the kitchen bench. Like mum would cook like lunch and dinner for the whole family every single day, all year round. Like no processed food whatsoever, no frozen meals. So I've been really lucky to sort of grow up in that environment, and that definitely gave me this passion for produce and for food and for cooking as well. So always been bit dipping in that food environment. I used to go hunting as well with my dad, fishing with my grandfather, so harvesting our own food, something that I've been doing since I'm pretty young as well and very passionate about. I'm still going fishing whenever I can, all the time. I went on a fishing trip with my fish supplier last week. So I went out for 24 hours out at sea, catching fish for the shop. So that was cool. And that's something that I wouldn't miss, like, for any occasion. Like, every time I can jump and just go hunting or go fishing, I'm just all in.
It's pretty cool. I've heard a few people on different podcasts or interviews and stuff like that about the process of when you like go out, catch your own food, and then you, especially because you're a chef, you get to go out, catch the fish, and then you get to watch it come straight from the ocean, and then you get to follow the whole process to where it then ends up on the fire. Like, that must be pretty special, I guess, for you.
It is awesome. Like, first of all, there's no better food than the food that you caught yourself. Like, the same fish that you bought at the shop and the same fish that you caught tastes better.
Hands down.
Hands down. So there is this personal satisfaction as well. Like, and you sort of understand how hard it is to catch your own food as well, you know, and it gives you like a sense of respect of the produce. You know, you've been spending 4 hours catching this big fish, for example. Like, you woke up at 4 a.m. in the morning. Well, you wanna look after when you get it. Like, you wanna make a beautiful meat out of this. You know, like, so it's sort of like definitely push you to do some good cooking.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's like this weird, like, I guess for people that don't eat meat or aren't really into that, it's a weird, it's like trying to explain that to someone who might not eat meat because of.
Well, there's a lot of beautiful thing that we can do with vegetable and fruit over fire as well. Like, it's not only about meat and fish and protein. Of course, it's very focused on this type of produce, but like, one of our, like, let's say, eat on the menu, like something that everyone loves every time, is just a simple pumpkin cooked for 5 hours in the cold, slowly cooked. So the pumpkin steam inside, and the skin sort of charred as well. So you can eat and the pumpkin result into a flesh that is very smoky and absolutely delicious. And there's a lot of beautiful thing that you can do with fruits. We one of our like specialty as well, we hang whole pineapple and we let them smoke for 6 hours while the meat is cooking, and that is the dessert. Or sometimes we use the pineapple to do some relish for the pork or the chicken. And I love like all the stone fruit as well, like during summer, beautiful when they cooked over fire, the plum, the peaches. And so there's a lot, and I love really cooking vegetables as well over fire. I think it's very, very, very interesting.
So it's not necessarily, so I guess that's probably a good thing for someone who probably doesn't eat meat but would still like to come to your event, is that there is obviously
vegetarian options. Yeah, for sure. Vegetarian are more than welcome. We welcome the vegan as well. We had some vegan coming.
Yeah.
And vegan don't eat meat, and we respect that, but they're also very fascinated about like what we do without judging. Well, at least the one that comes.
Straight hate coming out.
But I had some chat with some people around the fire pit. Say, oh yeah, I just find that fascinating. I don't eat meat. I'm vegan, but it's cool.
It is. It is a very fascinating thing to watch, especially like for me when I was growing up. I used to watch like my dad and stuff cook hungies and things like that, and you just like anything that has fire in it, you're just excited as a kid. You're like,
it's so good, but not even as a kid. Like,
and
whenever you light a fire, like everyone comes around, you know, and it's sort of just brings people together. Like, you light the fire pit and everyone wants to have a beer or a glass of wine and nice chat, and the ambience is very relaxed, you know, and so that's what I like as well. And especially like in the early morning when I am on my own, 4 a.m., just like the first birds are starting to sing and I'm lighting the fire, I can only hear the birds, the wood crackling, you know, and I can see like the sun rising, and you start to have all those beautiful aromas that of the meat cooking, and it's just amazing, really.
It's getting me excited. I'm going to come along. I'm going to come to one of these 4 a.m. starts. I love getting up early. Do you have like a morning ritual that you do beforehand? Like maybe something, I don't know,
beforehand
to get a little bit weird.
What time?
Like
2 a.m.?
Well,
I try to sleep.
Do you get, there's no spiritual getting up here. There's no ritual. Like, do you get up and you're like, all right.
Okay, I've got a little ritual.
Like maybe something small?
I have to say, I usually I wake up, jump in my car, and I go to the servo to get a coffee. That's my ritual. Because this is the only place I can get a coffee at 2:30 a.m.
I thought you'd be coming from a Frenchman. You'd have this nice specialty coffee, maybe the V60 in the morning. You're like, quick pour over. No, you just like get up, get there, go.
Well, yeah, the alarm rings at fucking 2:30 in the morning.
That's so rough.
So it's pretty
so rough.
It's pretty rough. So sort of like trying to shorten the ritual, you know.
It used to be
so
nice.
I'm just trying to grab my hat and just get my shit together and just
lay everything out the night before. That's what I do.
Yeah, that's what I do as well. But I always forget something anyway. But yeah, I'm just driving straight down to the servo to grab my coffee. So that's my ritual. So it's not very sexy. It's not very dreamy.
Everyone's like disappointed.
Yeah, super disappointing. Sorry, guys.
It's a very early start, and I guess it would like starting something so early and an event that runs so long would require a lot of passion.
A lot of passion, yeah.
Because it's not like just going to work. Like even though a lot of chefs, they work massive hours, especially in the commercial kitchen and things like that. But this is like on a whole nother level, I feel.
That's a full day. Like, yeah, it's a 2:30 wake up and then you usually finish. If it's a lunchtime event, yeah, we're packing down I'm home by 5 or 6. So in the afternoon. So it's a big day.
That is a massive day.
And then when it's 2 days in a row, so 6, and then back on 2:30 like the next day, and here we go again. So
I didn't even really think about that. Yeah. So how does that work? I guess for yourself, because you do have your team, as soon as your cooking's done, do you stay right until the end, or do you kind of go back and then reorganize produce and stuff like that?
Well, depending, like Kenilworth Homestead is like pretty much the only place where we do 2 days in a row, because we've got a bit of infrastructure on site as well, like cool room, kitchens and stuff like that. So that's how it allows us to sort of run it for 2 days in a row. But normally it's like 1 gig per weekend. Like if I do private functions and I'm going, like let's say I have to travel an hour and a half, in the morning to get to the property, I usually try to do the setup the day before, even depending on how far it is from the Sunshine Coast. I try to set up the day before, at least the fire pit and stuff, because at 4 a.m. have to start cooking. So I start cooking, and then so we light the fire for private function. I've got my trestle tables, and I'm starting to fully install like a full outdoor kitchen, like prep benches and everything. Like it's
so much work that goes into it that I guess people don't see because no one's there at 4 o'clock in the morning. Everyone turns up around lunchtime.
No, of course, of course. But that's why we're doing it.
That's why
so
you love it.
Yeah, so people can enjoy it like a few hours down the track. But yeah, and I think when they actually see the setup and the work and equipment involved, they start to realize that it's just not only a barbecue, you know. It is just not only a barbecue. It is something a bit more special.
When you were saying, you touched on that your mum used to do all the cooking and stuff like that. Do you have other siblings in the family?
Yeah, I've got a brother and a little sister as well. My little brother is like quite good home cook sort of thing. I don't know much about my sister, but I don't think she's a really good cook.
Straight call.
Let's be honest.
Straight message. You like leave under this. She's like, how dare you?
But yeah, growing up, like and we used to go. My dad used to go hunting a lot, so it's like wild game, like meat, deer, roe deer, ducks, pheasants, and she used to cook like beautiful terrines, ragu, and all that sort of stuff. So I've been dipping into that sort of food culture and since a very young age.
Did your mum teach you how to cook, or was it?
Not really. I remember I used to hang out with her a lot in the kitchen, enjoying a lot what she was doing, but I wasn't actually cooking much with her. And I actually starting to cook professionally very late because I started in the hospitality industry behind the bar, wait staff, manager, had my own restaurant, even before becoming a professional like chef. I only started chefing 7 years ago, maybe 7 years ago.
That is pretty late, I guess.
That's pretty late. I'm 35, so yeah, it's pretty late. And no school, no cooking school. I just did that by passion. Everything is driven by passion. Like in my life is driven by passion. So I've got an idea. I want to do something. Well, I do it, and I figure later I'm going to put everything together.
Just get started?
Yeah, I get started. I get started, yeah. And one day, so when I sold my first restaurant, I was with my wife at the time, and one morning I wake up and I was like, well, I think I want to be a chef. I want to be a chef. I've been cooking like at home for years and years and years, and as we've been talking, very passionate about produce, and I was like, well, that's the last thing I need to learn now is how to cook professionally. So I was working in a really good friend restaurant. I was working as a manager on the floor, and the head chef that I was going really well along with was looking for a chef de partie or sous chef, can't remember. And the next day I went to have a chat with him and say, hey, look, Jan, I'm not a chef, but you don't have anyone. And I'm a pretty good cook, so if you drive me, I can do it. Like, I mean, I've been running restaurants for years, so I know how to do it. And he trusts me, and he really took me under his wings and and that's how my chef career sort of started.
Strong armed him into giving you a job. Yeah. You ain't got anyone.
I'm here. That's the easiest way. All right.
It's really interesting that you say that you are driven by passion, because I feel like there's certain people out there that they need to get everything sorted before they start. Where I find
I'm the opposite.
Yeah, saying that's this whole podcast is just get started and then kind of just start putting things together as I go along. which has actually kind of worked out well for me. But it's cool to hear it come from someone else who's doing so well, for maybe someone who's listening and is maybe just still getting kind of caught up in the whole let's build this thing beforehand before we like just
Well,
go.
sometime I wish I would have prepared a little bit more what I was doing, but won't lie. But I'm pretty happy the way I sort of go above. Yeah, pretty happy the way I go. Anyway, I'm just like, I want to do something, I'm just doing it. Like, no matter what, if it's not my trade, doesn't matter. I just learn, you know. I just work harder to learn, and I just put more passion, and that's how I succeed, I guess.
When you first started chefing under this head chef,
Yeah.
were you making lots of mistakes, or was it straight off the bat he was like, oh man, I'm impressed by your...
Oh, you're natural.
You're nuts.
I think I don't want to pretend to be like pretentious. I think I was doing quite a good job at the time. Not as good as now, but of course, but it's a learning. You know, when you're a chef, you constantly learning, and I've been, so since I started like this chefing 7 years ago, so I been chefing for a year before we moved to Australia, and then so a year later arrived in Sydney, fresh in Sydney. I knew that being a chef, like when you're traveling, is always a good job to be in, because everyone is looking for chef everywhere in the world at any time. So no dramas to find a job. But I wasn't like a very qualified chef. Like I was quite qualified, like been doing it for a year and always been like very creative as well. But I was working in that tiny little Italian restaurant, very, very busy. Like we'd do no reservation, 50 seats, we'd do 3 sitting per night.
Shit.
So it would be like a guy with an iPad at the front of the restaurant, a queue just all around the corner of the street, and people queuing to get into that restaurant to have have some food. And I started like the first 2 weeks with a head chef, and then after 2 weeks the head chef left, and then the boss said, "Well, now you're the head chef." And I was like, "Well, here I am," and this is how I became a head chef. So I guess I wasn't too bad. I've been working in that restaurant like for 6 months before we moved up to northern New South Wales in Yamba, where my wife and I open a restaurant. And so very focused on seafoods, a beautiful little fishing town, Yamba, and surfing town as well, but beautiful local produce. And so I just opened a restaurant, and I started to do my own thing, I guess. And after 3 or 4 months, 4 months, got an email. I think it was after New Year's Eve. I was on the 1st or the 2nd of January. I remember I was pretty hangover, and I opened my emails, and then it was the Australian Good Food Guide that awarded me 1 chef hat. So you've got 3. You can be awarded 1, 2, or 3 chef hat. There is about 400 restaurants in the whole of Australia that are awarded. So that was like one of my greatest achievement, like after 4 months opening. So, and for the little side funny story, couldn't really believe it at the beginning, and my wife kept going onto the Australian Good Food Guide every day for 2 weeks to see if they haven't taken off that chef hat that they're giving us. Like,
that's crazy.
She was like, "Nah, they must be wrong. They must be wrong. Probably it's not gonna be on the website tomorrow. They made a mistake or something." I was like, no.
Isn't that crazy? to think, I guess, from what we just talked about how you just literally just done things with passion.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you've opened this restaurant 4 months in, not even qualified as a chef.
Well, not as
but
you
like,
would.
as like in a traditional sense.
In a traditional,
you know what I mean? Like obviously you
100%,
can
yeah.
cook.
Yeah.
But yeah, not in a traditional sense, which would be so out of whack, I guess, coming from like an old school perspective where it's like get the trade, have the ticket, you're safe, where you've just gone out.
By the time I was working 80 hours a week as well in my restaurant, so nothing happened by magic, you know.
Yeah, of course,
but,
of course.
But it's definitely not the traditional way to achieve like your career. And I've always been driven by passion, like all the time. So that's the way I function, I guess. So for me, it's just like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah, I'm interested. Yeah, I'm gonna start doing it. Yeah, I'm practicing. Oh, I'm doing it.
Well, it's just like it's inspirational to, like, especially for me sitting across from you speaking about this, to just see that, like, you don't have to follow the normal way of doing something.
No.
And if you just work really, really hard, all these opportunities will open and everything will come together. And obviously getting that chef hat is pretty high, especially in the Australian food community, I'm sure. And you literally opened up a restaurant in 4 months and then like bang, just like that. And that was all come out of passion and just hard work.
So yeah, if there is one lesson to sort of like remember, anything is achievable, and I am the best example. I don't know, I haven't achieved like that much yet, but it's on the way. And just like, yeah, follow your dreams. And you, oh no, it seems like very.
It's like it seems
follow
like
your dreams. So boring. but do it. Follow your dream, and but actually do it. It might pay off. You might. It's gonna be a bumpy road. It's always a bumpy road. It's still very bumpy. Like, I mean, there's like what people see, you know, cook-ups, beautiful photo on Instagram, social media, and so, oh yeah, this is amazing. But there's a lot of side of this business, or any business in general, that is not very sexy.
Is there, what would you say is like the hardest part of the business side of it that you have to deal with?
I'd say, as I am a bit of a one-man sort of operation, is having to deal with everything. So everything at the same time. It's not only about cooking, ordering, doing menus, also admin, creating content, like managing your ad, marketing, your this and that. And it's just like sometimes it's just going crazy.
How did you... We'll give Perry a shout out because he's been for people that don't know, Perry is the man behind the camera for
Terra Firma.
For Terra Firma. So how did that come about, and how do you feel like it has, do you think that it's accelerated your business?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Well, cooking over fire is very visual. So that's a gift in 2022 with social media. When you have like a very visual activity, it's a gift, you know, like it's way more sexy than I don't know, marketing box of tissues, or you know. But
yeah, it's like very, very visually appealing.
It's very visual and it's appealing for people, you know, like. So what was the question again?
Oh, just how you came about to getting Perry on board.
Oh yeah, Perry on board. That's where we're at. Well, when I started the activity, of course, the main goal was to get the attention of the local community, you know. So creating like social media, and then so for the little story, Perry is the guy behind the camera for Terra Firma that does all the video, the photo, and just follow me in all my crazy adventures everywhere. And I met Perry because from the same area, same suburb, he was a barista. And one morning, it just came to me, walk around the counter and say, "Oh, Charlie, are you the guy that did Terra Firma?" I'm like, "Yeah, oh yeah, I've been following you now, and I do photos and videos, and I want to be involved." I was like, "Well, maybe give me my coffee first." I don't know, but it's just been like, I was just so surprised. I was like, "Yeah, that sounds amazing. I don't know how you're going to be involved." And then he came to me with all those ideas, and we start exchanging, and being surrounded with creative just push the boundaries of your creativity as well. So we hang out all the time together, and he's really passionate about what I do, and I'm really passionate about what he does as well. So I'm starting to have a few more skills now in photos and videos and angles and stuff like that. So I'm getting better thanks to him. So great collaboration. So
He's a really cool dude.
Cracker.
It's pretty funny that you two have met, because from when Perry was on the show, his whole thing was based off passion as well. He's like,
Yep.
I had no idea about videography, no idea about photography.
And that's what I love about him. Like, he's a go get it, you know, and that's what we say to each other all the time. You know, you go and get it. No one's gonna come and get you. So, and that's the way I think, and that's the way he thinks, and that's how he start doing photography and videography and passion, you know. And so we're really on the same level on that, and that's why it's working perfectly.
Shout out, Perry. There you go. Champ.
Thanks, champion.
Thanks, champion. All right, let's get down to brass tacks.
Yeah.
Where did the name Terra Firma come from?
Well, Terra Firma is Latin. So Terra Firma means solid ground in Latin. So Latin, it means in Spanish, also in Portuguese. So for me, Terra Firma is on the Sunshine Coast, for example, is like using the solid ground of the Sunshine Coast to source my produce, to operate, to cook, and to harvest the food. So that's how I sort of click and say, yeah, Terra Firma sounds about right. Don't change anything.
I kept saying it wrong for so long. I can't remember what I was saying, but I remember Perry was like, "That's not how you say it." I was like, "Oh, I really need to fix it. I really sort this out." Like right way before. I was like, "Oh my god." Have you? This is a bit of a interesting one for me. Lately, I've been noticing that a lot of Aboriginal food produce that they used to use back when they were around roaming Australia and stuff like that. Do you use any of those produce in your foods?
Well, a little bit, but there is a project that I am actually working on at the moment, not at this right moment, but in the moment, where I want to start doing a collaboration with a local Aboriginal community and start cooking over fire using native produce. So I've got a little cooking class project going on in Obi Creek next to Kenilworth. So I'm going to be setting up like a permanent structure to host cooking classes, and I'm going to be inviting Aboriginal chef and also the next door neighbor from the property where I'm going to be doing those cooking classes grow all sort of medicinal and fruits and native fruits and native spices, native vegetables. So I'm very excited to collaborate with her as well and start integrating those produce a bit more into my cooking.
That's great. It's a really interesting. I don't know much about the produce that they use, but it seems to be like a really cool concept to actually start integrating the natural natural Australian produce because like as you were saying, everything like you like to go from the beginning all the way to the end with the produce and know exactly where it's come from, and then you're also using your surroundings, like your produce around you, rather than maybe buying fresh produce, but it's coming from like, I don't know, wherever an eggplant comes from type thing. I think it's like it's a fascinating way to think about cooking now.
Completely, and I think there's a lot of produce out there, like native produce, could be fruits. I use a lot of coastal greens like sea succulent, seaweed as well. Love using kelp seaweed. I used to work with a bit more. I used to work a bit more native spices and produce back in the days in my restaurant in Yamba. I'm just sort of slowly integrating it into my new activity, but I want to make it like a bit more interesting and a bit more immersive, and not just using the spices, but actually connect and collaborate with Aboriginal people.
That's so cool. That's like really, really cool.
And I think they called Australia the land of fire, you know. So that's how they call the land. So I just find that there's a very, very interesting connection, and I can't wait to start getting onto this project and knew more about the roots of this Aboriginal culture and the way they cook and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah, I'm excited to watch it happen. I'd love to come and see how it all works. I think it's really fascinating.
It would come up very soon.
Yeah, early mention. Let's go. You've heard it here first and creative after it. Have you, when you were chefing back in France, was it fine dining type of chefing?
Well, I was doing a bit more. What I was doing was semi sort of fine dining when I started chefing in France, and then when I had my restaurant in Yamba, it was a bit more fine dining. So I guess I'm still like balancing in between those two style. I like the fine dining style, but I also like the very rustic style of cooking. So, and I think you were mentioning Lennox iced tea from Fire Doors down in Sydney, and what really amazed me is how he combined those two universe, you know, like the fine dining world and the open fire, and he blend them those two styles together, and the outcome is just outstanding, you know. So it might be someone I want to push a little bit and try to do a bit more event, a bit more premium event where I can go a bit above and beyond with produce and style. And
yeah, because I was going to follow up with the other question of how do you find, like, what do you find the biggest difference is between obviously cooking over fire, apart from the main thing about cooking over fire, but between that and then fine dining?
It's way more simple because there's so much things that you can do over fire, really. Like, well, when you're doing fine dining in a kitchen, you've got all those appliances and all those equipment, you know, all this technology that you don't have in the open air, you know. Like when you're cooking outside, it's wood. Wood, you hang, you can smoke, but that's the very interesting part of it. So out of one fire, you can actually do a lot of different techniques. You can just smoke, you can grill, you can slow cook, you can char, you can. So depending on where and how you're going to use that heat, you can really use it in different ways. So that's quite interesting. But you definitely a bit more limited when you're cooking over fire than when you're doing fine dining, but I don't miss it.
You don't, you're like,
Nah, I'm good.
yeah. I think what you're doing is probably much better than fine dining. I feel like maybe fine dining would be, I could be wrong because I'm obviously not a chef, but it's might be a little bit more stressful in terms of because you're working in such a high pressure environment around a lot of other really like talented chefs, and maybe everyone has a little bit of an ego because they're all trying
competition, and that's why like I never work like in big fine dining restaurants, just because I always wanted to stay away from this sort of environment. Like when you cook in a kitchen, like commercial kitchen, like you've got printers, like it's very hostile. Like everything's burning, you know, everyone's yelling. There's a lot going on, and yeah, cooking outside for me is also like sort of having my moment where I can chill, relax, and just connect. Well, not only chilling and relaxing when I'm cooking, but
because there's a fire, like
because I actually need to feed people. But it is way more relaxing, of course, just because of the environment. So that's really what I love.
Yeah, there's a obviously I've been keeping a track on your socials, and recently you ran a long lunch event, which seemed to be more of a, I guess what we were speaking about before, the fine dining as well as the open fire, and marrying the two together.
So yeah, this event in Montville happened once a month. It's a long table set on the property by the water. Beautiful decoration, beautiful setting, and we have like a very sort of pretty solid menu with like 3 canapes where we plate all the canapes and explain all the story of the produce in front of all the guests when they arrive. They can have like a little glass of champagne and sort of interact with the chef, and then everyone go and sit at the table, and we have like a beautiful rustic style buffet with like 5 or 6 different proteins, seafood and meat, 4 different sides of vegetable, homemade sauce, and of course dessert cooked over the fire as well. So it's a very premium version of a very basic techniques.
How did you, I guess, and then how did you find the pressure of that particular style of cooking versus maybe something at Kenilworth? Did you feel like you were under a bit more pressure because you were providing a bit more of a...
The pressure is always on, you know, like it's the same, you know, when at the end of the day you're here to cook and feed people, no matter what the style is, it can be in a restaurant, it can be outside. You only really relax and feel good when everyone's happy at the end of the day, you know, and you've done a good job. But it's always like sort of stressful. So I wouldn't say that the pressure is less. No, it's just different.
When you were overseas, did you do much traveling throughout different countries? Like, did you go to Argentina?
No, the funny thing is I've never been to Argentina yet. It's definitely on the chart now that the borders are reopening and we can sort of plan international travel again. So it will be on the map some stage next year, I think. But not really. I sort of wake up one day and I was like, oh, I want to cook over fire. I'm done with restaurants. So that's how it happens, and that's really how it happens. Like I was like, I'm not going to be doing another restaurant. I'm done. I was private chefing. I had like a private chef business, so I was doing fine dining into people's home. That's what I started doing when I moved to the Sunshine Coast a year and a half ago. And after 6 months, this open fire style of cooking always been in the back of my mind for a few years now. And when we sort of settled on the Sunshine Coast, I was like, well, this is this sounds like a great area to start doing it. Just because like the wedding market is quite huge here on Sunshine Coast. We've got Brisbane that is not too far, with a lot of people going down, going up the coast for the weekends and stuff. So it was sort of beautiful properties as well, beautiful interlands. So that's how it all started, and then it sort of escalated. And yeah.
Have you had much feedback from Argentinian people?
Yes, I do.
And then, because obviously if you haven't been to Argentina, but yet you're cooking a style that comes from Argentina, have you had many people?
That's a pressure for me.
Yeah, I was like, how is it?
So we do have like a lot of South American people that are coming to our event, of course, because they're very intrigued, you know, and they want to feel a little like back home. And so I've got a couple of stories about Argentinian that came to Kenilworth. Like first Argentinian that I met was like a dad that came out with his two sons for his birthday, and so he's Argentinian. He's I think he's a teacher in Brisbane. Anyway, they spent the whole weekend at Kenilworth, and at 6 a.m. on the dot, they were already around the fire pit with me, fascinated, and they spent the whole morning with me chatting, and he told me a lot about Argentina and the asados, and it was like you look at the fire pit and all this like meat smoking and hanging above the fire, and it was like, you're doing an amazing job, because it's like home, like, you know, it's like back home. And I was like, wow, this is powerful, you know, because that's the goal. And so I really enjoyed it. Even the chimichurri, that was the test, you know, like for an Argentinian, if the chimichurri sauce is not up to standard, and it was like, was the best chimichurri I had. So I was like, it was good. And last weekend actually, I had like another South American lady that came with husband, and when that was for the long lunch in Montville, and when she walked towards me, and we start chatting around the fire pit, and she say, "Oh, look, Charlie, all those smells just bring me back home at my nana's place when we used to do asados on the Sunday with everyone, all the family, the friends gathering around the fire, and all those smells, those tastes, those aromas and flavors in the food." So that was
it's pretty special, I guess.
Pretty special,
yeah.
Pretty special, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I guess it's like something to take in, like maybe in a quiet time for yourself, when
completely
after you've finally finished cooking, and you can really absorb what's just happened.
And I'm not trying to copy, obviously. I'm very inspired by this style of cooking and culture that they have in South America. But the thing is, I do also my own version of it. You know, I'm not doing completely right. I'm in Australia, so I'm sort of like doing my own thing, putting my own like little ideas into my menu and stuff. But yeah, so it's always great when I hear like South American people saying, "Well, I feel like home."
Yeah, that's crazy. What has the feedback been from the local people from the Sunshine Coast about the event?
Well, I think it's been very welcomed by the community on the Sunshine Coast. I think like a lot of people really enjoyed coming out Kenilworth and just enjoy, like, you know, a simple moment of gathering with the fam and the kids, and having the opportunity as well to have some good food paired with the good day outdoor, really. So yeah, I think people are pretty happy. Well, they're still coming, so I guess I think it's cool, and I really enjoy doing it, and I even more enjoy seeing people having a good time. You know, like when I'm finished cooking, when everyone's served, I just walk up on the upper paddock and I can see sort of everyone having a good time, like food is done and enjoying the music, a few beers and beautiful views, and yeah, I think
it'd be a very wholesome experience, especially coming from you who runs the event and cooks all the food, and then you get to see people enjoying the food that you've actually cooked.
yeah,
Especially after hard hours of like getting up super early in the morning.
that's
And
great, and it's also very rewarding to see the interest of the people coming to our events. You know, like I'd say most of the people like come at some stage around the fire pit to have a chat, asking me questions and this and that, and telling me their own story about cooking, and I think it's great.
that's so good.
Yeah, it's so good. You know, it just make me feel I'm doing something that interests people, and if I can share a little bit with them, that's great.
I don't know, I'm not sure if we touched on this or not, but when you order your produce and like your meat, your proteins and all that, is this all coming from locally sourced places from the Sunshine Coast?
Yeah, basically, yeah, most of it. I've got little producer, farmers, fishermen and stuff. I've got also bigger suppliers that work with local farms as well. Because of course, when I'm running like big events, sometimes we're talking quantities that are crazy, you know,
Yeah.
like sweet potatoes for this weekend, 6 boxes. I've got 120 kilo of sweet potatoes for the weekend, you know, for example. So I give you an idea of like the amount and the volume of food that we go through. But yeah, everything is sourced like sustainably and ethically as well. So I select my supplier very carefully.
Are there any specifics when selecting, maybe, for example, like meat? Is there anything specifically that you're looking for when you're...
Yes. Depending on the type of meat. For example, if I'm looking at beef, I want beef that is mature with marbling through it. So that means that the marbling is the fat content through the meat. So it really reflects the way the beast has been farmed and the life that he has before I end up in my plate. But yes, for example, I know that I don't use like young beef that are very lean or sort of that. So I'm sort of quite picky on my selection as well. Yes.
And how does your partner fit into all of this? Is she working behind the scenes, or is she...
Yeah, she's working behind the scenes, supporting me every day with my shit moods.
Listening to your great angry chef
Yeah.
moods?
Listen to cranky shit. No, I'm not cranky. I'm pretty joyful. Pretty happy guy.
I'm chill.
Super chill.
Super chill.
I'm super chill, except when it's raining. Like, sometimes I feel like an old person. I'm just talking about the weather. If it's raining for a week, I'm just going to be talking about the weather to everyone. And sometimes I just come back home. I'm like, "Fuck, are you 80 years old, man?"
Like an old farmer.
Like an old farmer. just talk about the weather. Just like, and I'm just like, oh, maybe I should try to talk about something else this week. But yeah, it does get my head a bit crazy when it rains and I've got events planned. So summer has been challenging.
How do you actually, this is probably a good one. So how do you overcome those type of challenges? Like what fail-proof systems do you have in place to, I guess?
Well, there's not really any sort of fail-proof system against the rain. Like there is location where I have like undercovered area where I can operate on like mobile fire pit and barbecues. So I can basically do what I do off the ground, but on this barbecue that I can put on the cover. So that's one way of doing it. When, for example, Kenilworth, where everything is outside, even the fire pit, I have to cancel the event unfortunately. People are very understanding, you know. It's an outdoor event, outdoor cooking. People are coming out for a picnic. No one wants to come out for a picnic when it's raining. Let's be honest. And yeah, so I just have to cancel, unfortunately.
And with your wines and beers and things of that nature, are they from local breweries? And also, do you pair the wines and the beer with the food?
No. Well, yes, the beer are made locally. I work with Boiling Pot, Johnny, if you hear me. Thank you for your beer. And wine, I've got a selection of wine. We do not pair the wine on the food at the long lunch. People actually BYO on this long lunch, so they're able to come with
just crates of wine just coming in.
Yeah, no, but people just like taking the occasion as well to bring a very nice bottle that they want to have like for the lunch. So I think it's a great opportunity for people to drink whatever they want as well. I'm just trying to focus on the food and more than the wine, really.
Well, this kind of might be a bit controversial then. So you did mention that you give them a glass of champagne on arrival. Is this champagne from Champagne in France? Or is this...
No, sparkling wine.
Crucial. All your French friends are going to be like...
I know.
Well, this has actually been a really informative episode for me, and I guess for many other people, and I'm so glad that you've come on and
thank you for inviting me. I hope you enjoyed the ride, the food journey, my food journey.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a really fascinating style of cooking, and I get really excited like when people are super passionate about it. You can tell they're passionate because they're really engaging and when you ask questions. But there are two things we like to do at the end of each episode.
All right.
I'm not sure if you've ever seen an episode, but
let's do it.
The first thing is you get to shout out a local legend who you think should come on the show, and the second is if you could give one piece of advice to someone maybe trying to get started or a little bit stuck, what would that be?
What's the second question? Sorry, again.
So if you could give some advice for someone who might be struggling to chase their passion or just needs a little bit of a kick up the arse, what would you say to them?
Well, I would say go and get it. You know, that's what I've been saying to Perry that I've been working with. But yeah, my only advice would be dream comes true, yes, but with a lot of hard work. So don't dream about it and just do it. Just do it.
Amazing. So now we're going to go back to the first question because we've
got
question, a full...
Local legend. I don't want to give a shout out.
This is your chance. You can anyone you want that is in the industry of something creative.
There's a lot of people I would like to...
Just shout out a few of them then. Shout out a bunch of them. They can get them on the show.
I like to shout out Branton. Do you know Branton?
No.
He's actually a musician, really, really talented musician. He's been playing at Terra Firma for many, many gigs.
I think I might have seen him then because he plays at Kenilworth.
He plays at Kenilworth, yeah. Beautiful human. So big shout out to Brando.
He's coming on. You're coming on the potty, mate. All right. Well, this has been another amazing episode of Creative Appetite with my friend Charlie from Terra Firma. Thank you all for listening, and please subscribe, share it, tell your friends about it, tell your mum, tell your grandma. And then you know the drill. Hang around for another one. Let's go.
Thank you, Jesse.